Welcome back to NewOrleans.Football presented by PJ's Coffee. We are coming to you from the Osher and Andrews Sports Medicine Institute podcast studio up here on Veterans Memorial Boulevard next door to Matt Bauer's state-of-the-art Ford dealership. Make sure you go there and check him out at one of his many dealerships if you are looking for a new car. The Saints are into the thick of their coaching search right now. They lost Joe Brady. He pulled out of it. So now the attention sets on Kellen Moore. So that takes us into our first topic presented by Shea Bear Insurance, the Earhart Agency. Should Kellen Moore be considered the favorite for this job right now?
Maybe, but I'm only going to say slight favorite, like the Chiefs 1.5 point favorites over the Eagles. I think it's a little strange that they're flying to Philadelphia. And if it was a done deal, I think he'd be coming here. I think he'd want to sign off on seeing the weight room, meeting everyone in the building, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. So I still feel like they're in the get to know you stage with Moore, but they definitely they're the last team to hire a coach. And I think the main reason they're the last team to hire a coach is because they wanted to wait on maybe him and Brady, and maybe him and Brady and Kingsbury, but definitely at least him. They had enough candidates that they could have just picked from Mike Kafka and Darren Rizzi and Mike McCarthy, but they wanted to wait on some of these young coordinators who are still in the playoffs, and he's the most prominent of them. He's the last one definitely remaining in their coaching search. They wanted to wait for good reason. And I also think the Mike McCarthy stuff is kind of interesting where I don't know how to portray Mike McCarthy. I don't want to say fallback option, but almost like those two sides only want to have that interview if it's going to be him. Like, don't call me if you're wasting or let's not set it up. If it's a waste of time, let's do it. Let's do it if that's the decision. You know, there's more known about Mike McCarthy in the building. So I guess I would put him as the front runner right now, but it also doesn't feel like already done deal and this is just a formality. I don't feel like they'd be flying out to Philadelphia. Who would you put as a formality?
Who would you put as a front runner?
I guess Kellen Moore, but only because I'm kind of at like 30% more, 25% other guys. You know what I mean? Like, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think Kellen's probably the favorite. I mean, I don't know that Mike's on the don't call me unless it's me time. Like, I think Mike desperately wants to come in and interview, and I think he probably is afraid of falling out of the league a little bit and becoming Ron Rivera. And then maybe you just constantly get passed over by the Kellen Moores forever if you get a little bit of distance away from it. So I think Mike wants it real bad. I think he's just on hold. I think and I think they're just having him on hold because they want to see their process, and it's probably, well, we're not going to go do this unless we know that's a door that we're willing to open. I feel like the Saints are kind of,
that could come from either angle, but they're obviously not just like checking that box. Like it feels like that interview is only going to happen if it's serious.
I don't think Mike has the leverage to say, hey, don't call me unless you're giving me the job.
I didn't mean to portray it that way, but it feels like they've both sort of agreed. You know us, we know you.
Yeah,
we'll do this if we're going to do this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I can see it that way for sure. Yeah, it's just it's weird to me that they just never moved into that though. Like, I think Mike's interest in them is heavier than their interest in him right now. Because they're kind of running through their process right now, and I think the thing with that is you aren't going to lose them. Like, there's no, hey, I'm going to go back to being a coordinator, I'm going to go talk to Jacksonville. I'm going to, now they can just kind of play it out how they want to. But yeah, I think Kellen Moore is, if I had to pick one, is probably the front runner. I think I'll put it like this. I think they would probably want him to be the front runner. I think they want,
that's a really good point.
If you can run through it and all the things and you check off all the boxes and everything. And I think maybe it's possible that they've wanted him to be the front runner in this the whole entire time. Like, I think we'll talk about Joe Brady in a minute. I think Joe too is someone that you probably want to be in that mix where you're like, we have to hire him. This is the guy. And if it's not, then you go to Mike. But I think there's just so much you don't know. Like, it's all the same things with Brady a little bit. Can he lead a room? Can he be the head coach? Is he organized enough? Is he going to have the right plan? Is he, steadfast in his convictions? The offense, he can run a team, all the stuff that he does really, really well. He's creative, he has this scheme and everything, but it's kind of the Cliff Kingsbury thing where you get him in that main chair and, maybe sometimes guys are a little bit better as a coordinator than a head coach. Now, that's not saying Cliff couldn't come back and say, this is how I've learned from my mistakes and I went to it and I'm good to go. But We also saw Dennis Allen do that and then get built back in that, and then it didn't go. But like, there's other guys that, Dan Quinn takes a step back to take a step forward a little bit. So that can happen too. But yeah, I think with Kellen, you want him to answer all those questions. And if he checks those boxes, he is the favorite. I don't know that I could say he's a favorite right now though, because I think in that 7-8 hour process, whenever it plays out this weekend, I don't think it's going to be today. I don't think he's interviewing today. I know it was said Monday. I don't think that happens today. But yeah, I think at the end of it, you're hopeful that it is him.
Yeah, no, I think you worded that the perfect way. I don't think it's already a done deal, but I think they would like for him to come and they have 3 kind of safety nets, or 4, I guess you could say. But I mean, Rizzi is the obvious safety net, and they know him very well, and we think he's he has earned the chance to be a real candidate based on what he's done here and the way he's respecting this building. Mike McCarthy. And then, Mike Kafka is the young offensive coordinator that they're obviously impressed with if they want to go that route. Anthony Weaver, I should say, is one too. I have a feeling it's kind of a McCarthy, Rizzi, known commodities, young offensive coordinator. I feel like you could just tell by the original list that they had that they really want to explore that. For the same reasons we always talk about it. We talk in theory about that being kind of the coach you should want most, is the young rising offensive coordinator. So you cannot complete this coaching search until you talk to the best ones. And they wanted to talk to Kellen Moore and Joe Brady and Cliff Kingsbury. They might only get the chance to talk to one of them, which is obviously a disappointment, as we're going to talk about in a minute. But I think it would be a disservice to the coaching search not to fully vet Kellen Moore, who on paper feels like the candidate you'd want most if he checks all those boxes you talk about. I also think he would check, and this is not guiding the Saints fan search in any way. They don't care about public perception. I think he would check absolutely almost every fan box, every complaint I've seen. They didn't predetermine who they were going to hire, which Aaron Glenn would not have checked that box. Darren Rizzi would not check that box. Dennis Allen didn't check that box 3 years ago.
Before you go on, quick counterpoint to the very first point, though. Let me play devil's advocate on these as you go through them. If there is anything. They didn't have the option to predetermine because the people that would have been predetermined didn't want to talk to them or went somewhere else.
Well, unless it's like Rizzi. Unless they interviewed Kafka, Weaver, and then hired Rizzi or McCarthy.
I think they would have predetermined, could hire Vrabel, could hire Ben Johnson, could hire Aaron Glenn going into it, and I don't think they had the option to do that. That would be the counterpoint to that.
Totally fair. But the fact that they took the longest time of anyone and then picked Kellen Moore to be one, no ties to the organization, not just doing things the way they've always done things. Young offensive coordinator who's going to shake things up, do differently thing here. They've already let Klint Kubiak go. They're obviously not holding on to their old ways as far as that goes, which we're also going to talk about later. So in a lot, and Kellen Moore is probably, you can make an argument for Joe Brady. I feel like he's 1 or 2 years behind Moore in this hype cycle of young offensive coordinators. Moore probably has the highest overall league-wide interest for the most time of any of the candidates on their list, I would think. Most teams have talked to him, especially when you factor in the last 2 years or whatever. So even though there is no shielding yourself from the hits you've taken during this head coaching process, that would still be a quote-unquote good get, I think.
I like the idea of him. I have no idea if he'd be good or not.
Exactly.
It's just, it's all the unknown. But yeah, I mean, there's goes into Philadelphia, kind of a bad, toxic situation, and he was somebody that was part of leading them out of that. So I think that's good too. That's a plus for him as well. On top of that, it maybe, I don't know if it's indicative of leadership quality or not. I have no idea how to answer any of that stuff.
That is an interesting point you make, because I had even kind of forgotten about it, I think, till we were just chatting about it, or who knows? We've talked about this so many times on the air, up the air. But it feels like, you became Philadelphia's offensive coordinator and they went to the Super Bowl. Whoop-de-doo. Weren't they just there last year? No. Remember where they were last year? They were losing for all of November and December and got obliterated by the Buccaneers in the playoffs because their offense completely fell apart. So he was part of a major salvage project. They just ran for 7 touchdowns. The first team since 1940 to do that in a playoff game yesterday. And that also answers another question about Kellen Moore, which is he used to have sort of that young Sean Payton stigma of being too cute, throwing the ball, being too exotic. and you give him Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts in that offensive line, and he's like, okay, then I'll have the best run game in the league. So I think this was a very important year for him and his reputation and proof of his offensive acumen for sure.
Yeah, I think he probably had the best day. Like we talked about, as far as could a guy raise their stock or not? And I don't think it changes your power rankings or anything. Whoever you like before, is still your guy. But he definitely had the best day of the three. And it's, obviously won and the other ones didn't. But I thought Joe Brady.
Steve Spagnuolo had a pretty good day too. Maybe they should bring him in for an interview.
But like his like the worst thing I saw about Joe Brady was kind of like the stubbornness with the tush push when it was like very clearly not working, and you kept doing it and you kept running into that wall. And obviously Kellen had a really good day where it's easy to see all that stuff. But again, if you kind of like stop evaluating after the Giant or the Lions' very last game, AG's like, in a precarious spot. But if the game before was the last exposure, like you love him. Yeah. Cliff Kingsbury has a bad day like the week before. Everyone's like, man, I want Cliff. Yeah. Joe Brady a week before was, damn, Joe Brady really might be ready this time. It's Joe Brady. Yeah. It's just kind of how that evaluation.
Joe did okay too, though.
Yeah, he did. No, he did. Look, you're playing Kansas City. You got to get that spot, or Kincaid has to catch that pass. Like one of those two things has to happen to be able to beat Kansas City and the NFL in Kansas City, and you can't do it if you have two mistakes. Like you're fighting two powerful forces there, and they just couldn't get it done.
With Kellen Moore, I wish. And I know why we don't get good information on this all the time. I wish we knew who everyone's offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator are going to be, but a lot of times everybody is very sensitive about that information, because if the person's not leaving their current job, they never want to claim that. I think one safe bet that we have on here is that Kellen Moore might bring Doug Nussmeier with him as offensive coordinator, because they were together in Dallas. Then he brought Doug Nussmeier with him to the Chargers. Then he brought Doug Nussmeier with him to the Eagles. Doug Nussmeier, former Saints quarterback and father of LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier. Is anything interesting in that tie to you? I don't know who his defensive coordinator would be. That would be a lot more interesting to me, as who's his defensive coordinator.
I mean, I like the idea of having like a lieutenant, someone you trust, someone you've worked with, had success with, all that stuff. That doesn't. Yeah, I mean that's fine, I guess. Like it's not.
Yeah, it's not like moving the needle either way.
Yeah, it's not like Declan Doyle, where it's like, man, young hot shot. Who's this guy? Let me look into it. Boy, that's exciting. This is different, completely out of the box. And likewise, I'm pretty sure that Mike McCarthy's OC would be Brian Angelico if he got the job. Tight ends coach, pass game coordinator with the Vikings, been around the league for a while. I think they worked together in Green Bay years ago. So I mean, that's just usually, for the longest time, it was like. The narrative around the Saints was, I don't want them to hire anyone they know. People always hire people they know, except in this case, if they hire Kellen Moore, the Saints are hiring someone they do not know at all. Yeah. But he'll hire people. It's like, who's going with Kubiak to Seattle. Like, there's not going to be any surprises there, I bet. I mean, it's just kind of how it goes.
I like that. I mean, that impressed me about Kubiak, and I hope we see that from the next head coach. I have not been able to get.
Yeah, you don't want Gerard Mayo. Like, we're going to go get this guy. Wide receivers coach was in high school coaching wide receivers. Like, you don't want that. You do not want that.
I don't have good information on defensive coordinators for either guys. I don't think Mike McCarthy would keep Mike Zimmer, who has also talked about retirement. Interesting if Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley developed a relationship when he worked for Staley, if he would bring him in here. Neither one would have a command the room presence, but I actually kind of like the concept about Staley a little bit. Jordan Renan reported that if Mike Kafka gets the job, he'd bring Wink Martindale with him. That's the ultimate pairing of the young coach who doesn't have presence with the veteran defensive coordinator who has all the presence. So I don't know. Would you rather have a Wink Martindale defensive coordinator with a young coach, or a Brandon Staley defensive coordinator with a young coach? Or you're not set on either one?
I want the guy that's going to create the most success.
The best defense.
Yeah, that's all I want. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I think you need an enforcer somewhere on your staff, but I don't think it has to be a coordinator either. Like, it can be Dan Campbell, the tight end coach. It can be the running backs coach. It can be the wide receivers coach. I just want the guy.
He had Joe Vitt.
I want the best scheme. Yeah,
Peyton hired a Joe Vitt, who was the linebackers coach / consigliere / guy who addressed the room on Saturday nights. And then Dan Campbell eventually got that job when he let Joe Vicco. But yeah, that can be senior assistant who just has a enforcer-like presence on the staff for sure.
Like I think if you have a defensive coordinator who can sit down and explain everything in the world to Tyrann Mathieu and show him what he can do to get him in a position to make plays and how it's going to work, and he can answer all his questions, I don't think it matters if he screams F you or if he says it, calmly. Like, it doesn't matter how it comes out of there in those moments, as long as you can explain it. I think Alvin Kamara, if you go to him and you say, this is what we're doing on third down, and Alvin being Alvin is going to say, why are we doing that on third down? And then you can answer that. And then Alvin's going to say, why aren't we doing this on third down? And you can answer that. And then you can say, what's my role in this and why am I blocking like this? And if you can answer all those questions and have a reason, like, they're going to buy in. And again, I don't think it matters, how it goes. So I just think if you bring success, like, I think that presence thing can show up a lot of different ways. And the obvious way when you're coming off a DA is having the cursor, the stand in front of the room, like, look like, The Rock or whatever. And great. Like, that's fine. But if your scheme doesn't work, it doesn't last that long, So it's just, as long as they get the right people and you have those blind spots and you're aware of, like, okay, we hired Kellen Moore, who I don't know anything about him. So, I mean, it's like, I can't really speak on his presence, but let's say
presence isn't a plus from everything I've said. Isn't a known plus. I should say is not a known plus.
Yeah. But like, let's say you have a Klint Kubiak type as your head coach, and then he hires Brandon Staley. Like, just make sure that you have pieces, probably one on each side of the ball, that can support them people, where it's like, hey man, like, we need to get everyone in line. You handle, like, just an enforcer somewhere on there. And if you need two, just make sure you have two. I mean, I think it can be done multiple different ways. Obviously, you want everything, and, like, the main guy, like, Sean had a little bit of everything, and I think that made him successful. Belichick didn't have a lot of presence, but he could find a way to cut you down. So, like, there's different ways to do it. But yeah, obviously, you want it all there. Like, Mike Vrabel is, like, has some of the X's and O's, has some of the presence, and that kind of is why he was the first guy off the board. But there's more than one way to put it together, I think.
I have one more point, but I think it'll fit better in the next segment.
All right, moving on to it. This one presented by Urban South. Joe Brady dropped out of the race, said, want to go back to Buffalo, not interested in the job at this time. How does that impact things?
I mean, it's bad. It's a slap in the face to the Saints. There's no two ways about it. Now, this happens every once in a while, which is sometimes fine. I mean, this happened at the beginning of the search. Ben Johnson was like, don't waste your time. Mike Vrabel was kind of a don't waste your time. He dropped out. Aaron Glenn kind of dropped out. He did the first interview with the Saints.
Hold on. Interesting with Vrabel, though, is that he was kind of, like, I said back in, like, November. Like, I didn't think he was interested in it. And then he started to circle back around it and was going to take an interview, and then he got hired. Like, so he wasn't completely no thanks. Like, he was gonna talk to him. Like, and that was, he has a job, so I don't care. Like, I had conversations with people connected to Mike that, like, were trying to get information about the job.
Still choosing something else over the Saints.
But I just want to make it clear that wasn't like a Like, I had conversations with people connected to Mike that had, had
he
voiced
didn't
an
say,
interest.
I'm just not interested.
Yeah,
in
it started out there, and then like I think he started to like, all right, like let me explore this a little bit, and I think the timing just didn't work out.
But I mean, we're well aware. And
he
from
never
the
would have took the
beginning
job.
of
He
this.
never would have took the job.
They were. That means maybe they were his fourth choice or whatever, because he did take some interviews. And look, Cliff Kingsbury a couple weeks ago, I don't think anyone batted an eye when he said, "I'm not ready to talk to anybody." Some of these guys are still thinking they're about to go to the Super Bowl, and they're like, "Look, this is just not what I want to be doing right now." So maybe it's not as nefarious as it seems, but it seems nefarious. And when Aaron Glenn turned the Saints down, I did not think that looked that bad, because look, he picked the Jets. We all thought it was a better job. He had closer ties to the Jets even than he had to the Saints back as a player and a former scout for them. He had a better opportunity to hire, be part of the GM hiring there. They have a better roster there. Joe Brady chose to just not even explore the idea of becoming a head coach for the Saints, and he wants to wait for a better opportunity in a future year. That's a slap in the face. Now, we know why this job isn't attractive right now. And even when we've talked theoretically about it on the record, off the record, it's, man, if you're a young coach and you're going to be judged on can you be a head, we talk about Cliff Kingsbury and what he did in Arizona as if we learned something about Cliff Kingsbury. We talk about, Dennis Allen with the Raiders. He that stuck with him forever. If you go into a bad situation and you lose, Arthur Smith with the Falcons or whatever, you're stuck with that. Now you have to overcome that when you are trying to get your second job in the league. This is a job that people should be scared to take because it's going to be hard to win here early. And it's going to, you have to have a real good vision to see when you're going to be able to win here. And so, it's a reality check. It looks really bad. And I also understand why it happened. This is not just the job you want to take if you think everyone's going to judge you on it.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote my thoughts on it. Like, I think it's obviously everything you just said. It's a bad look for them. A guy doesn't want to take your interview. It's a bad look for them. It just is, like, especially when your kind of messaging is that everything's all good.
Yeah.
We're on the right path. I mean, you can't really say a whole lot when it's coaches telling you, no, thank you.
You can't say that's just the fans and the media talking.
People in your building are saying it now.
Top coaching candidates that both of whom worked here and know you and know how you operate.
Yeah, and it's like we know where they're at. We know where they're at. I also think Joe Brady made a smart money bet for himself. Go back to Buffalo. Like, take your time. Wait until you can go to a spot with a young quarterback. Be selective about it. You're gonna have more opportunities. You can spend more time developing as a coach. Like, he's still a very young person too in the league, and not for nothing. They share an agent. Kellen Moore and Joe Brady share an agent. Like, there's probably we're trying to decipher a lien. This could be something that indicates that there's a lien somewhere too. That would be your job as an agent to know kind of like where you're going.
Pull your name out.
Maybe not even pull your name out, but like, I get the feeling that maybe there's a little more heat on this guy than that guy. Like that, not for nothing. Like that's part of it. But look, to not have the conversation is crazy, but that's kind of the trend in the league too at this time. Like, people just aren't taking these interviews until they're ready, and word can get out. Hey, Joe Brady bombed in this interview. Like, that's detrimental for you, a cycle for now. So yeah, I mean, I think, man, it's wild. Like, Liam Cohen got a job without an interview, and Ben Johnson got a job without like actually going through the real interview. But yeah, I mean, I think Joe Brady made a very smart money bet for himself, and it looks bad for the Saints. Like, it really does.
And look at Joe Brady's history. He took an offensive coordinator job way too early with the team he shouldn't have taken it with the Panthers, and that set him back in his career. So you understand why Joe Brady makes a shrewd move. I am not taking the head coach. I don't want to take the head coaching job that might not be the right. But in this case, the Saints are the Panthers in this case. Like, the Saints are the job that's not good enough to shine you in a favorable light. So it makes sense for Joe Brady to do it, and it looks bad for the Saints.
I mean, you look at Shanahan, like, way back in the day when he took that San Francisco job, he was going to pass on that interview. He was actually like, he did a podcast with Schrager. Like, he was actually in San Francisco, like, overslept through it, was considering like not taking it, but was apprehensive about it because they didn't have the quarterback, and like, they end up selling him on the vision, offer him the opportunity to like go hire John Lynch as his GM, and like he gets sold on it.
They
but
both got 6-year deals too.
Like, I think. My point on that though is that I think when the quarterback isn't there, the young quarterback, and if you're the young hotshot coordinator, you know more than anybody that you need players to make it go. You can have the best X's and O's in the world, and if you don't have players to make it go, it's not going to work. And I think Joe Brady is someone sitting in a position of that, where he was in Carolina, didn't have the quarterback. He's in Buffalo, has the quarterback. It goes. He was in LSU with the quarterback. He's in Carolina, doesn't. With Buffalo, does. Sees the success every single place. The Saints don't have the quarterback that you want to tie yourself to if you're a 35-year-old offensive head coach. Like, it's just not there. You don't have the players around it. Like, the guys are older. Like, I think Joe Brady's in a position where look, it's not going anywhere for him. Like, it's not going to disappear on him. Like, Buffalo is going to remain good. It's not going to be this, like, Slowick. You kind of seen it there, and then it goes away. Like, Buffalo's going to be right back there next year. Joe Brady's going to have more opportunities next year. Liam Cohen and Ben Johnson are off the market. The young hotshots are gone. Kellen Moore's probably kind of someone, even in that peer group, probably likely to be gone. Like, he's going to be the name next year. Like, there's no reason for him to rush to it. And this situation is not one if you're looking down the line and say, like, I might have better options a year from now, like, why would you take it? Like, I think he made a smart choice. And again, his smart choice is the worst possible optic thing that can happen for the Saints. Like, it just is. Like, they're in a spot where everybody's everything's just very, very negative right now. And then this happening, like, just makes it look worse. But what does it mean? Like, ultimately, on top of it, it means that you have a black eye right now, and you have a black eye for the next few months, but you're still going to go hire your coach. It doesn't make Kellen Moore drop out. It doesn't make Darren Rizzi drop out. It doesn't make Mike McCarthy drop out. So if you're looking to hire Kellen anyhow, you hire him, you go, you win games, and it's all good. If you hire Kellen or you hire Mike and you hire Darren and you lose games, everybody talks about this again. So it's just your job to go build a good team and make sure that this is just like nobody really is like looking at Washington on Sunday and being like, they lost out on Ben Johnson, this garbage ass.
They were.
Yeah.
But
like,
now they're not.
Yeah. This garbage organization that's accessible. Like, no one's saying any of that. So, like, if you just build a good team and go win, like, it's forgotten. But if you don't,
we're talking Jaden Daniels and everything will be okay.
we're talking about Joe Brady 3 years from now still, if you don't. So, I mean, really, that's what it is. So it can mean a whole lot or it can mean absolutely nothing. But it's on Mickey Loomis. Like, build a better team. Win games with the coach that you have, and no one talks about that.
I was just about to bring up Mickey Loomis. I mean, can't ignore the narrative out there, which is that people don't want to work with Mickey Loomis. I think part of this stems also from the very specific, it seemed like people did not want to work with Trent Baalke. I think the difference in that situation is Baalke had earned a reputation of being a survivor who he would keep his job even if the coach would lose his job. Look, we report, we talk to people who know things. I have genuinely not gotten the impression that people do not want to work with Mickey Loomis or that is a reputation. I do think coaches would like to be able to handpick their own GM. I think that was attractive to Aaron Glenn in New York. But this is a rejection of what Mickey Loomis has built and stands for, the building a team that is not set up for long-term success and that is set up to keep winning year by year. They stand by that. They believe in that. It's kind of his core principle and his core philosophy. And I think that is being widely rejected right now. I don't think, when we talk about it in the media, there's a lot of dismissal like, the fans think we're further away than we really are. The media thinks our roster is older than we really are. No, these coaches think you're further away than you think you are. These coaches think your roster is older than you think it is. And these coaches think your salary cap situation and your recent draft history is worse than you think it is too. That is something that can't be ignored.
All right, that's going to do it for the first part of the show. We're going to hit a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. Ochsner Hospital for Orthopedics and Sports Medicine on Clearview Parkway is celebrating 5 years of exceptional achievements. The hospital's integrated team has successfully performed over 20,000 surgeries using the latest in cutting-edge technology. With nationally recognized services and impactful partnerships, they continue to lead the advancement of orthopedic and sports medicine care in our region.
Rouse's Markets is voted best grocery store in New Orleans, best grocery store in Baton Rouge, Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Thibodaux, Houma, Hammond, Lake Charles, Mobile, year after year. Thank you for choosing us best grocery store on the Gulf Coast. Number one. Thank you.
Thank you.
The number one grocery store
in Mississippi, Alabama,
Louisiana. 1 million customers a week can't be wrong. Welcome to Rouse's.
The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. NewOrleans.Football is proudly sponsored by Urban South Brewery, the makers of Paradise Park Lager. I love supporting local breweries, and when looking for a refreshing, easy drinking beer, I always recommend Paradise Park. In fact, I think it might be the best game day beer out there. If you want something a little lighter, try Paradise Light. It's everything I love about Paradise Park with just 96 calories and 2.6 carbs. And if you're looking for a family-friendly place to watch the game, I'd recommend Urban South's Tap Room in the Lower Garden District. They've got 15 TVs, 30 unique beers on tap, and mouth-watering urban smash burgers. The whole family will want to make Urban South their new living room because at Urban South, they take laid back seriously. Looking for the best insurance coverage at the lowest price? Look no further than Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency. They are a local independent insurance agency right here in New Orleans. specializing in home, flood, and auto insurance. At Chabert Insurance, the Earhart agency, their dedicated team will shop every available carrier in the market, ensuring you get the most comprehensive coverage at the lowest possible price. Why settle for less when you can have the best? Trust Chabert Insurance, the Earhart agency, to protect what matters most to you. I do. I've been a client of theirs since 2021. Call them today at 504-326-6526 or visit them online at Protected by Chabert. That's 504-326-6526. Chabert Insurance, the Earhart agency, your local insurance experts. Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. NewOrleans.Football is proud to be sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Make sure you check out their location on Veterans Boulevard. Attention Saints fans, don't let pests and termites invade your home field. Trust the team at Red Pest Solutions to tackle those unwelcome visitors. Call the Red Man today for unbeatable pest and termite control. Score peace with no pest. Visit redpest.com, REDDPEST.com. Welcome back to the New Orleans.Football show. Our next topic is presented by Aaron Rose. Klint Kubiak is headed to Seattle, which means the Saints are starting over on offense. Not a surprise there. That's kind of the outcome you want, is to have new offense, have the person with their own vision coming in. If it's an offensive coach, there wasn't going to be a place for Klint Kubiak anyhow. But this means that Derek Carr is going to be changing coordinators yet again in this system. Third coordinator he's had since he came here. Kind of was starting to get a little bit of momentum with Carmichael at the end, was kind of getting a little bit of momentum with Kubiak there early on. Now he has to start over all again. How much, assuming he is on the team next year, which he may or may not be.
Well, he'll have a new coordinator no matter what.
Yeah, but if he's somewhere else, I ain't watching him play football again. But yeah, I mean, how much of a challenge do you think it is for him to be starting over with a new coordinator?
It's a challenge. I mean, look, his history showed that he struggled in his first year with a lot of offensive systems, even the ones that he had his greatest success in, including John Gruden. Took a little while to transition, and he talked about it last year. He talked about being well aware of his history of starting slow in new offenses, trying to identify that why that was, and saying he worked harder. I mean, there was a lot of dramatization about, sleepless nights, never worked harder, determined to get it right, determined to start fast. And now he will have to do that all again if he's learning a brand new offense, which he will be. Although, he's learned so many different offenses. Chances are the next one will be somewhat close to something he's familiar with in the past. I mean, I trust Derek Carr to be able to transition to a new offense. I don't think that'll be too much for him. I mean, we can also talk about that's true of Spencer Rattler and Jay Kaner too. Now this will be their second year, and they have to learn a new offense from scratch. You would much rather see Spencer Rattler, quote unquote, picking up where he left off after he got 6 games of experience in his first year. So it's definitely a negative. It's not one that can't be overcome, but it's one that makes it harder to hit the ground running without question.
Yeah, I mean, look, he talked about how he kind of had a system for learning a new offense last year, like all the mental reps he would do, and he kind of figured out what didn't work before and what can work this time. So I think he'll do some of that, and it'll help him hit the ground running. But obviously, starting over is bad. Like, there's no continuity. There's no getting into the, okay, did it for a year. Let me get into the deeper nuances and start over from there. It's not beneficial to him. It's not beneficial to anybody, I don't think. Now you got to learn a whole new language again. Everybody's got to start over. At some point, it would be nice to see this organization get some continuity. And look, if they hire one of these offensive guys, this is something you don't really have to worry about for 2-3 years, assuming it's not a 2-win team, total disaster next year, and you're starting over with a whole new coach. But that's the argument for getting a offensive head coach, is that you get a system, there's continuity. You don't have to worry about being Tampa where someone's stealing your coordinator every single year to be a head coach if you have success. So that's the argument for it. But yeah, I think he'll find a way to be okay. He was okay last year, and that's just a business. When you aren't winning games as a player, you're not really.
Baker Mayfield's about to have his 8th offensive coordinator in 8 years.
Fair, yeah.
Look, he obviously transitioned from to Dave Canales well, and then to Liam Cohen well. So it can certainly be done. Russell Wilson finally got in a system that suited him well this year. Veterans can do that, but it's definitely hard. As for Klint Kubiak himself, look, as the probably leading member of his fan club, even when things weren't going well for him, I would still continue to buy stock in him. It's going to be tough for him to start over again. This is now the third time he's been an offensive coordinator in a place where the head coach has gotten fired. So he's gotten 3 one-year stints as an offensive coordinator. One was even less than a full year under Nathaniel Hackett. Look, he wasn't able to overcome the circumstances here. I liked everything him and his staff did, implementing the offense, getting players to buy into it. This is like we were talking about at the first segment. You get all your assistants who are on the same page as you. You're all speaking the same language. The way we talk to players on the record, off the record, Eric McCoy sat in this chair. Everyone was so enthusiastic about being part of this offense. They started great, and then players started getting hurt. And there was no, like, the plan B didn't work. But I think under the right circumstances, he can still be a successful coach. I wouldn't have hated the idea of him still being the offensive coordinator here if they hired some coach who loved him, who believed in him. That's the kind of offense I want to run or whatever. But I also have no problem with them letting him go because they want to hire a new coach who has his own plan and his own vision and hires his own assistant. So I'm fine with them letting him go as well.
Yeah, I'm ready. Like, I'm glad it's something new. Like, honestly, like I think you probably had like the 15th to 18th best. Like,
sure.
You know, that mid-tier, whatever the mid-tier quarterback is, I think that was probably where you were at with the offense. And if you gave him all great players, just like if you give Derek Carr all great players around him, they're going to look better. If you're trying to kind of overcome things, I think it's probably going to look a little bit worse. You know, it was incredibly hard circumstances, but I think there was probably a ceiling on it, and I think you can find a higher ceiling. I think the best thing that they have going for them, anybody in that tier, is that there aren't 20 good offensive coordinators in the NFL at any given moment. And if you're someone that's like competent and good, you're going to keep getting shots. And like, there's so much turnover with those every single year that like, being able to get like a 5th chance or whatever it is for him at this point is kind of crazy. Like, that doesn't really kind of happen. I think that position helps create that though. But yeah, he was okay. Like, and I think it's better than it was going to be at the end of the season. But I just feel like you can raise the ceiling on it, and I don't think his ceiling is something. I think you hang on to it because you have it and it's comfortable, and that's one of those things you can kind of get. It's kind of like being the team chasing 9-time wins a little bit. Like, you kind of can get stuck in that, and then you don't leave it if you're achieving it. And I'm okay with like trying to hit at a higher level than.
You know what's
they were
interesting is if we're ranking the most likely Saints head coaches as Moore, McCarthy, Rizzi, Kafka, the only, and we're assuming Weaver is in 5th right now. I don't know if that's fair, but Rizzi is.
I would be extremely surprised if Weaver got hired. I would not be even extremely surprised if it was somebody else.
Yeah. Rizzi's the one guy who doesn't run his own offense. So I wonder if this is a hit for Rizzi. I wonder if this is who he would have chosen as the offensive coordinator, or if Rizzi would have wanted to go in a different direction too. And Rizzi might want to cut every tie to the past too, and so he can be judged on his own merits.
I believe that Rizzi would have brought in something different.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm okay with it though. Like, I'm okay with raising the ceiling, like 100%.
Sure.
I don't disagree with if he's around, you're like cool. But I mean, I think that there's keep pushing. I mean, I guess that's my whole reason for being like Joe Brady, even though I have no idea if he's ready to be a head coach. Like, it's why now, given the current options, like, I'm kind of leaning more Kellen Moore because it just feels like there's a ceiling there that's higher than what like Mike McCarthy would bring. And then there's always the Rizzi option, which it's kind of hard to evaluate unless you know who OCDC are within that. So, but yeah, that's. Give me the young guy where I can kind of at least lie to myself for,
Would you lie to yourself if it's Kafka?
Kafka would take some work getting my head around, I think, just because, all the smart people I talk to love him.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like I haven't seen it, and kind of knowing that, like, the New York thing's weird. Like, I don't think he really even did anything this year. Like, it just sounds like he kind of helped game plan a little bit and like wasn't, I don't, it's just very, like, there was talk about him maybe being out in New York and now he's going to be a head coach. Like, it's just very, but you get in those weird survivalist situations and there's weird survivalist stuff happening and people get scapegoated and, I have no idea. But yeah, I would feel different about him because it's not it's not clean, right? It's not a clean transition. It's like you kind of have to justify X, Y, Z. It's kind of like the Chase Young thing where it's like, well, if the surgery worked and he's motivated and he's around a different culture, and maybe it was Washington and maybe it was this, maybe he'll be a 15 sack guy, and then he's not. Like, I don't know. Like, I would feel like there would be some of that process with Kafka, and I would like to not have to be like, well, maybe it was, boy, that team got rid of Saquon and weren't they dumb? Like, I would like to have like things where it's not like he was in a terrible place. Boy, the Raiders, man, Al Davis, the way they were running that team for a long time, you can't really look at anything there. Their culture, look at everybody who's been there. It all goes to hell. Like, I don't want to have to do that again.
That's fair. That's fair.
Just me. All right, moving on to our next topic presented by, I lost my list here. We are on the hard high topic for today. Does Dave Ziegler and Klint Kubiak signal anything at all to you as far as I'm taking off going to other places?
No, I mean, we just explained why Kubiak happens. I mean, if they would have offered Kubiak a job, he probably would have stayed here. Like,
I think he leaves.
I mean,
he wants to call his own offense.
No, but I mean, I don't think he left them. Like, there's no head coach. Like,
they left him. I mean, they left him in November. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if Darren Rizzi got the job and offered him the job, he probably stays here. Like, I don't think he abandoned the team necessarily. Yeah, he might have abandoned. He might not want to work for Kellen Moore or Mike Kafka or Mike McCarthy for that matter. So I dismiss that as being a sign of the team being rejected. Ziegler's a little interesting. He didn't really have a number 1 or number 2 or number 3 role. I think he was prominent in a lot of the team's decision making and in this head coaching search, and so that's kind of another weird hit on top of all these other hits, that somebody who's in on this coaching search takes another job. But he left for a promotion and a more secure job, and he obviously did not. I think this signals that he wasn't being like groomed as a successor to Mickey Loomis within the next couple years, with some promises of being the future GM here. So, but I in the end, I think it's a guy who helped enhance his reputation by staying in the league circles here and got a better job elsewhere.
Yeah. I think if you're being realistic and not like trying to spin a narrative, this is a guy who had a title that was a consultant. He had a consultant salary, and now he is an assistant GM with an assistant GM salary. He probably raised his salary several $100,000. Like, I don't think it's really. Yeah. It's like, he was helping with the coach search, and losing him from that is a hit, and that's bad in that sense. But in a healthy environment where we're looking at things positively instead of negatively, like, you're just probably kind of looking at that and saying, oh, they had like a guy in the front office for a year who helped them have a good season, and he left. Like, okay, cool. But when everything's bad and someone leaves, everything looks bad and it looks different. But there was no path for him to get a title here even. Like, what was his job going to be? Like, you have Kai here, you have Jeff Ireland here, you have Parrington here, you have Mickey here. Like, there was no path to that for him. So I think he has to leave. Like, on top of that, like, he was like living in Vegas. Like, he wasn't even here year round. He would come in for like a week or two at a time. He was scouting from out there. Like, he wasn't being like paid to be here even, really. So
Jeff Ireland had a similar job at the Seahawks before the Saints hired him, and it wasn't like he abandoned the Seahawks. The Seahawks weren't offering him the assistant GM / college scouting director.
Dave Ziegler's an incredibly intelligent human. Having him around was an asset. Losing him makes, it's a hit for the Saints. Bringing him in was a really smart thing. But I think Dave leaving is just because Dave had the opportunity to have a position like that he wasn't going to have here. And you have to do, like, that's a man with a family. Like, you got to go. You got to go do it. It's not like jumping off the ship, though. It's not like he was, And I don't think Kubiak was either. Although I think if Kubiak's sitting here on hold and they're like, well, like, hey, like, we might hire you for this, and then the Seahawks offer it, like, I guarantee he's going to the Seahawks because they got a better roster and a better situation. Total Maintenance is one of the largest locally owned home and commercial service providers in South Louisiana and serve the greater New Orleans and Baton Rouge markets. They have a membership program that gets you 2 tune-up visits for AC and heating, as well as club membership discounts of 15% on all repairs, half off of all diagnostic charges, and 3-year warranties on most repairs for membership clients. This is usually priced at the low price of $24.95 a month per system, but if you tell Total Maintenance that you found them through NOF, they'll lower the price to $20.95 per month per system for as long as you keep the membership active. Services include AC and heating service and replacement, electrical service, plumbing service, as well as generator service and installation. They are Total Maintenance. Find them at tm-ac.com or give them a call at 504-841-3300, or if you're in the Baton Rouge area, 225-480-1000. Martin's is your go-to destination for everything merry and bright this holiday season. From an unmatched selection of bourbon, whiskeys, and wines to gourmet food, gift baskets, and catering, Martin's has all your holiday needs covered. Family owned and operated since 1946, Martin's knows the perfect ways to celebrate this season with loved ones. Visit them in Metairie, New Orleans, or Baton Rouge, or shop online for the ultimate convenience. Whether you're raising a glass or looking for the perfect holiday gift, make it an easy and cheerful holiday with Martin's.
Saints score! Score big with Saints Score. Win up to $100,000. Enter the second chance drawings for cool Saints prize packages. Play Saints Score scratch-offs from the lottery.
Whether you are a local New Orleanian or a fan in town for the game, get your pre- and post-game fired up at Aaron Rose. Local chaos and local love for the black and gold. Wake up and live with daily drink specials, mimosas, screwdrivers, Bloody Marys, and hot or frozen Irish coffees, all just $3 or $4 between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Aaron Rose, half a block from Bourbon Street in the French Quarter, 811 Conti Street.
Here at the Queen Casino, indulgence knows no bounds. Prepare your taste buds for an extraordinary culinary journey. Start your day at Capital Coffee. Craving something different? Three Walks Noodle Bar offers a tantalizing selection of Asian delights. At 1717 Kitchen and Cocktails, savor American cuisine with a twist. Or ascend to the loft for an elevated experience. Enjoy artesian grazing boards and exquisite craft cocktails. Join us at the Queen Casino. Your royal adventure awaits.
Welcome back to the NewOrleans.Football show. It is now time for the Martin's Questions of the Day. Martin's is home to a wide selection of handpicked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and more. Martin's so much more than just wine. Make sure you go through there and check out their sandwiches. They got really good sandwiches. Today's question is, if Kellen Moore were hired as the head coach, should we expect running back to become a high target to the Saints, even at maybe number 9?
Maybe, but that is pretty funny that Kellen Moore's reputation after 1 year in Philly is he's a running back guy. It used to be that he doesn't run the ball. It's funny. I saw two memes on social media yesterday. One was a picture of Kellen Moore and Justin Fields in a Saints uniform. One was a picture of Kellen Moore and Ashton Jeanty in a Saints uniform. And I thought, you could sign Justin Fields and draft Ashton Jeanty, and all of a sudden, like, you would have an entire personality to your team. But look, yes, maybe. I am still the guy who thinks there's incredible value to be had in drafting a third-round running back. I don't know if there's incredible value to be had in drafting a first-round running back, but if Ashton Jeanty is Saquon Barkley, maybe you could convince me. But either way, hey, if he can draft a stud running back who's going to be their starter for the next 4 years on day 1 or 2 of the draft and commit to the run, I guess I'm for it.
What was the Saquon draft? What year was that?
18? Was it the year after the Saints' big boon?
Yeah, I think it was 18. If you're doing a redraft of that draft, and I mean, look, he went second, but I mean, like, he's the first pick probably in damn near every draft the last 5 years. So if there's a good player at that position, draft him high. Like, that's where the league is going. Like, it is. Like, that's just where the league is going. We just saw it yesterday. Like, it's a complete cheat code to have that individual against defenses that have been shrinking for the last 10 years. It's just kind of come back to that. And then defenses are going to start getting bigger, and then running backs are going to start losing value again. And then it's going to shift back to pass. And then it's just going to be cyclical. It's kind of like, clothing in a way. Like, jeans get big and then they get small and then they get big again. Like, that's kind of what happens. Like, and there's just going to be these cycles in the game where I think it kind of goes like that. And I think, even for that reason, I think tight ends are going to start having a little bit more value too, because, like, you get bigger, stronger players against smaller people, and they kind of change it a little bit. And that's kind of been true for tight ends forever, though. Like, that was Sean's whole offense was kind of defined by what type of tight ends he had over time. But yeah, look, I if you can tell me that there's a game-changing tight end and you can get him in the top 10 and he's going to be Yes. Like,
Yeah.
I just think that's where it's at.
That's the key. Like, I'm not going to, it's funny. I just tried to Google James Cook and I have a picture of a British explorer captain from the 1700s. I think I picked the wrong James Cook. I was trying to see, he was killing it yesterday. He was drafted pick 63. That's the stigma I can't get over. Give me any game-changing player at number 9. I don't care if he's a running back. I don't care if he's a tight end. I don't care if he's a safety, every other position. The thing I can't get over is I do see that you can sign a free agent for relatively cheap. Saquon was relatively cheap. You can get your hands on a veteran running back. You can draft a third-round running back. You can draft a second-round running back. I just don't feel like the Saints have any path to a left tackle or a defensive end or a cornerback where they're not overpaying, drafting them in the third round. And so I just have this stigma that running back is a need you can fill with maybe not the Saquon Barkley of the league. Those other positions, I feel like that number 9 chip is so valuable that I feel like using it on a running back, I'd be like, you use that on a running back.
Not if it's a 2,000-yard player.
Is a 2,000-yard player.
Yeah,
then,
Gibbs
if he's Derek Henry, then I take
Gibbs
it all back.
Gibbs is a 2,000-yard player. Like if Saquon's literally a 2,000-yard player plus. Like if
Alvin,
you're giving me
Alvin
that,
was. I mean,
if you're giving me
draft
that,
Alvin with the 9th pick.
Alvin's a 1,600-yard player. Like I think a 2,000-yard player is like it's different. Like if you're telling me you can get a 2,000-yard player at 10, and it's like nah, give me the wide receiver that's going to give me 12. Like what are we talking about? Like I think it's just kind of. I think we have to update the thinking on the value of running backs a little bit. It's just because like the league
until the Chiefs win their third straight Super Bowl with absolutely paying no attention to that position whatsoever.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think one team is defining the whole. Like they have the biggest freak in the world at quarterback, and they do have a really good running game at the same time. But yeah, the league is shifted. Like they're just running the ball. The Detroit was about to get there just running the ball, and that's kind of. Look, you have all the Shanahan offenses, like all the McVay offenses, like it's built on running the ball well. And like to be like, well, the guy that kind of is going to touch the ball more than anybody else other than the quarterback has no value in the system. Like I just don't subscribe to that. Like, and I'm Mr. Drafted third round running back, but I just think that the outliers, the freaks at that position, like we can't just, I don't think you can just be like, nah, I'm going to pass on Saquon and give me Cooks, who's going to get me 1,100 yards. Yeah, he's going to have some really good seasons. He's going to have some really good games. He's going to be the difference on some Sundays, but Saquon's the difference on literally every single Sunday.
No, I agree.
And I'm with that.
If a player is that special, I don't care what position he plays.
That's my But freak.
I mean, in theory, I would still rather draft Tristan Wirfs in round 1 and Bucky Irving in round 4 because I know you're not getting a left tackle in round 4. But you're cherry picking to make an argument. Obviously, if you can draft Saquon Barkley or you can draft Christian McCaffrey, and you have to do it in the top 10, draft the all-time special player who's maybe a Hall of Famer. Always.
Yep.
Give me a Hall of Famer on this team.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Like I think that just like that. No, I would never. Like that was a very real thing for a long time, and I think it was true for a while. But I just think the league has shifted back to a place where you have like extreme advantages if you have a really talented back. All right, that's going to do it for this show. We'll be back on Wednesday with more. We'll be at the Senior Bowl. Keep it locked with us for all of your coverage of the Saints.